Jake Morrison sat on his porch, watching the two suns of New Haven slowly set behind the rolling hills. His golden retriever Max lay beside him, panting softly in the warm evening air. The dog's tail thumped against the wooden deck whenever Jake reached down to scratch behind his ears. 3 years ago, Jake had been a different man. He wore the uniform of Earth's Marine Corps and carried a plasma rifle through the darkest corners of space. He fought pirates on asteroid bases and helped establish colonies on hostile worlds. The military life had been good to him, but it was hard. Too many friends lost. Too many sleepless nights, wondering if he would make it home. When his 20-year service ended, Jake wanted nothing more than peace. He bought a small farm on New Haven, far from the busy trade routes and political tensions that seemed to follow humanity wherever they went. The planet was quiet, with only 5,000 colonists spread across 3 small towns. Most were farmers like him, growing food to ship back to Earth's overcrowded cities. Max had been with him for 2 years now. Jake found the puppy abandoned at a spaceport, probably left behind when some family moved to a new world. The little golden ball of fur had looked up at him with bright brown eyes, and Jake knew he could not walk away. The dog became his constant companion, following him around the farm, sleeping at the foot of his bed, and greeting him with wild excitement every time he came back from town. "Good boy," Jake said, running his hand through Max's thick fur. The dog rolled over, showing his belly and making Jake smile. It was one of the few things that could make him smile these days. The nightmares from his military service still came, sometimes, but Max seemed to know when the bad dreams hit. The dog would climb onto the bed and rest his head on Jake's chest until the shaking stopped. The peace Jake had found on New Haven felt too good to last. He had heard rumors from other colonies about strange ships appearing at the edge of human space. The news feeds talked about increased military patrols and diplomatic meetings with alien governments. Jake tried not to pay attention. He had done his part. Now he just wanted to tend his crops and live quietly with his dog. Max suddenly lifted his head, ears perked up and pointing toward the road. Jake followed the dog's gaze and saw a dust cloud rising in the distance. Someone was coming, driving fast. Max stood up and let out a low whine, the kind he made when storms were approaching. "Is it, boy?" Jake asked, but the dog just pressed closer to his leg. The vehicle that appeared was not the usual farm truck. It was a military transport. It's painted in the green and white colors of the New Haven Colonial Guard. Jake recognized the driver as Captain Ryan Carter, the young officer in charge of the small garrison that protected the 3 towns. The transport stopped in front of Jake's house, and Ryan jumped out. His face was pale, and sweat stained his uniform despite the cooling evening air. "Jake, thank God you're here," Ryan said, hurrying up the steps. "We need to talk now." Jake stood up slowly, his old soldier instincts telling him that bad news was coming. "What's wrong?" Long-range sensors picked up ships at the edge of the system. "Big ones. They're not responding to our signals, and they're not showing up in any of our databases." Jake felt his stomach drop. "How many ships?" "At least 15, maybe more. They'll be here in 6 hours. Max moved between the 2 men, looking up at them with worried eyes. Dogs always knew when something was wrong, Jake thought. They could sense fear and anger better than most humans. "What do you want from me, Ryan? I'm retired. You're the only one on this planet with real combat experience. Most of my people have never been in a fight. They're good kids, but they're not soldiers. Not like you." Jake looked out at his fields, where the grain was almost ready for harvest. He thought about the quiet life he had built, the peace he had found with Max. "I'm done fighting. These aren't pirates or raiders. The ships are too big, too organized. This looks like a military operation. They're hostile. We can't stop them with what we have." Before Jake could answer, Max started barking. The dog ran to the edge of the porch and looked up at the sky, his bark sharp and urgent. Jake followed his gaze and saw bright lights moving between the stars. They were coming down fast, much faster than any ship should move through atmosphere. "They're early," Ryan whispered. The lights grew larger and brighter. Jake counted at least a dozen of them, all heading toward the main settlement 5 miles away. The ships were sleek and dark, nothing like the blocky human vessels Jake knew. As they got closer, he could see strange symbols painted on their hulls. "Zaltharians," Ryan said, his voice barely audible. "I've seen those markings in the intelligence reports." Jake had heard of the Zaltharians. They were a warrior race from the far side of the galaxy, known for their aggressive expansion and treatment of other species. Human diplomats had been trying to establish peaceful contact for years, but the aliens showed little interest in talking. The ships passed overhead with a roar that shook the ground. Max pressed against Jake's legs, whimpering. Jake knelt down and wrapped his arms around the dog, feeling the animal's heart beating fast against his chest. "It's okay, boy. It's going to be okay." But Jake knew it was a lie. The Zaltharians had not come to New Haven for peaceful contact. The speed of their approach, the number of ships, the way they ignored all attempts at communication, these were the actions of an invasion force. "Ryan, get back to your people. Start evacuating the towns. Move everyone to the caves in the northern hills. What about you?" Jake looked down at Max, who was now quiet but still trembling. "We'll be along. I just need to grab some things." Ryan nodded and ran back to his transport. As the vehicle sped away, Jake stood alone with his dog, watching. The alien ships circled the main settlement like predators. In the distance, he could see explosions lighting up the night sky. The war he had tried to leave behind had found him again. "Come on, Max," he said, heading into the house. "We need to go." The dog followed him inside, staying close as Jake gathered his old military gear from the closet where he had hoped it would stay forever. His hands moved automatically, checking weapons and loading supplies. The training never really left, he realized. It just waited, sleeping until it was needed again. But this time was different. This time, he was not just fighting for duty or country. He was fighting to protect the simple life he had built with his best friend. Jake crouched behind the overturned farming equipment, his heart pounding as Zaltharian soldiers moved through his property. Max lay pressed against his side, silent but alert. The dog seemed to understand that making noise would get them both killed, that the aliens were tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like leather. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Jake had seen many different species during his military service, but the Zaltharians moved with a cruel purpose that made his skin crawl. 3 of them were searching his house now. Jake could hear them smashing furniture and breaking windows. They were not looking for anything specific. They were just destroying things because they could. A 4th Zaltharian walked toward the barn where Jake kept his farming tools. The alien stopped and looked around, its large black eyes scanning the area. Jake held his breath and pulled Max closer. The dog's muscles were tense, ready to run or fight. But he stayed quiet. The Zaltharian in the barn called out to his friends. In their harsh language, Jake did not understand the words, but the tone was clear. It found something interesting. 2 more aliens joined the first one, were dragging something between them. Jake's stomach dropped when he realized what it was. Old Ben Murphy, his closest neighbor, was barely conscious and bleeding from several wounds. The 70-year-old farmer had probably tried to defend his property just like Jack was doing now. The Zaltharians threw Ben on the ground near the barn. One of them said something that made the others laugh. It was a cold sound, like metal scraping. Against stone, Jake's hands tightened on his rifle. Every instinct told him to help Ben, but he forced himself to stay hidden. There were too many aliens, and he had no backup. Moving now would just get them all killed. Max shifted beside him, and Jake looked down to see the dog staring at the Zaltharians with intense focus. The golden retriever's ears were flat against his head, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Jake put his hand on Max's neck, trying to keep him calm. The Zaltharian, who seemed to be in charge, kicked Ben hard in the ribs. The old man cried out and tried to crawl away. This made the aliens laugh again. One of them raised his weapon, pointing it at Ben's head. That was when Max broke. The dog burst from their hiding spot with a fierce bark, running straight at the aliens. Jake reached for him but missed. Max was fast, faster than Jake had ever seen him move. The dog's protective instincts had taken over, and he was trying to save Ben the only way he knew how. "Max, no," Jake shouted, but it was too late. The Zaltharians turned toward the sound. The one holding the weapon swung it toward Max, who was still running at them with his teeth bared. The brave little dog was trying to protect someone he barely knew, just because that someone needed help. Jake started to run after his dog, but he was too far away. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Max leaping toward the nearest alien, the weapon charging with a high-pitched whine. The Zaltharian's finger tightening on the trigger. The plasma bolt hit Max in midair. The dog's body dissolved in a flash of blue light, leaving nothing behind but empty space and the smell of burned air. Jake stopped running. He stopped breathing. The world went completely silent, except for the sound of his own heartbeat thundering in his ears. The Zaltharians were laughing again. The one who had fired the shot said something to his friends and made a gesture like he was swatting a fly. To them, Max had been nothing. It's just an annoying animal that got in their way. Something broke inside Jake's chest. It felt like his heart was tearing in half. Max was gone. His loyal companion, his best friend, the only family he had left in the universe, dead because he tried to help someone. The aliens turned their attention back to Ben, who was staring at the spot where Max had disappeared. The old farmer's eyes found Jake across the yard, and he mouthed the word run. Jake wanted to save Ben. He wanted to kill every Zaltharian on the planet. He wanted to scream until his voice gave out. But Ben was right. Running was the only smart choice. If Jake died here, no one would know what happened. No one would know that the Zaltharians killed innocent people and loyal dogs for no reason at all. Jake forced himself to back away from the farm. His legs felt like they were made of lead, and his vision was blurry with tears he refused to shed. Behind him, he heard another plasma discharge, and Ben's voice went silent forever. The caves in the northern hills were already crowded with refugees when Jake arrived. Families huddled together around small fires, their faces pale with shock. Many of them were crying. Some stared at nothing, too stunned to speak. Captain Ryan Carter found Jake sitting alone near the cave entrance. The young officer looked like he had aged 10 years in the past few hours. "Jake, thank God you made it. We lost contact with your sector. I was afraid ... Ryan stopped when he saw Jake's expression. "Where's Max?" Jake could not answer right away. The words felt too big, too painful to say out loud. Finally, he managed to whisper, "They killed him." Ryan sat down beside him. "I'm sorry. I know how much that dog meant to you." He was trying to save Ben Murphy. The Zaltharians were going to execute him, and Max tried to stop them. They shot him out of the air like he was nothing. "Ben's dead too?" Jake nodded. "They're all dead. Everyone who tried to fight back. The Zaltharians aren't taking prisoners. They're just killing for fun." Ryan was quiet for a long time, and he pulled out a small communication device. "I'm sending a message to Earth. High priority. Emergency channels. They need to know what happened here. What's the point? Is weeks away. By the time any help arrives, we'll all be dead."
Maybe, but people need to know what these aliens are really like. They need to know about Max.
Jake looked at the device in Ryan's hands. Such a small thing to carry such terrible news. But Ryan was right. Someone had to tell the story. Someone had to make sure that Max's death meant something. "Tell them," Jake said quietly. "Tell them they killed a good dog. Tell them he died trying to protect people he didn't even know. Tell them that's the kind of species they're dealing with." Ryan began typing the message. In the depths of space, communication relays picked up the signal and sent it racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. Soon, the entire human race would know what had happened on New Haven. They would know that the Zaltharians had crossed a line that should never be crossed. They had killed a human's dog. President Helen Carter was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency alert came through. The communication from New Haven arrived at Earth's command center at 3 in the morning, but the duty officer knew this message could not wait until normal business hours. The president read the report twice before she believed it. Zaltharian forces had attacked the peaceful farming colony without warning. They killed civilians who tried to surrender. They destroyed homes and crops for no military reason. And they had shot a dog that was trying to protect its owner's neighbor. "Get me General Peter Hayes," she told her aide. Wake him up if you have to, and call an emergency cabinet meeting for 1 hour from now. Within minutes, her secure phone was ringing. General Hayes sounded tired but alert. I had been expecting. Bad news from the outer colonies for weeks? Madam President, I just read the New Haven report. This is worse than we thought. The Zaltharians aren't interested in negotiation or even conquest. They're just killing for sport. What's our current military status in that sector? We have a patrol group about 2 days away from New Haven. 3 ships, maybe 200. Marines total. It's not enough to take on a full Zaltharian battle group. President Carter walked to her office window and looked out at the city below. Washington was just waking up. People were going to work, taking their children to school, walking, their dogs in the park. None of them knew that humanity was at war. General, I want you to activate every reserve unit we have. Call back all leave, cancel all training exercises. How fast can we put together a real fleet? If we pull ships from every sector, maybe 3 weeks for a decent force, a month for something that could really hurt the Zaltharians. Do it. Ain't. General, I want Jake Morrison brought to Earth, the man who lost his dog. I want to hear his story directly. The cabinet meeting started with Defense Secretary Linda Walsh reading the full report from New Haven. When she got to the part about Max, the room went completely silent. These were experienced politicians and military leaders who had seen reports from dozens of conflicts. But something about a loyal dog dying while trying to save a stranger hit them in a way that casualty numbers never could.
Ow.
Don't understand what they've done, said Secretary of State Robert King. In their culture, animals are just property. They have no idea how humans feel about our pets. That's their problem, President Carter replied. We're not going to explain it to them. We're going to show them. By noon, news of the New Haven attack was spreading across Earth's global network. The government had tried to control the information. But Jake Morrison's message about his dog was too powerful to contain. Someone leaked the audio recording. Within hours, it was being played on every news channel in human space. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media exploded with pictures of people and their pets. Dogs, cats, birds, even exotic animals from other worlds. Everyone was sharing stories about their animal companions and what those relationships meant to them. The hashtag #RememberMax began trending within an hour. Military recruitment centers reported lines of volunteers stretching around city blocks. Young people who had never shown interest in military service were demanding to sign up. Retired veterans were asking to return to active duty. Manufacturing companies offered to work overtime producing weapons and ships. Admiral Aboy Collins was called out of retirement to command the response fleet. He had led the successful defense of the Titan colonies 5 years earlier and was considered one of humanity's best tactical minds. When President Carter offered him the job, his only question was about the mission parameters. What are my rules of engagement, Madam President? Total war, Admiral? No quarter? No mercy? The Zaltharians wanted to see what humans are like when we're angry. Show them. The fleet that began assembling at Luna Base was unlike anything humanity had ever put together. Ships came from every corner of human space. Military vessels, converted merchant ships, even private yachts equipped with weapons by their patriotic owners. Everyone wanted to be part of the mission to avenge Max. 3 weeks after the attack on New Haven, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the flagship UHS Vengeance. Admiral Collins had insisted that Jake be part of the fleet. The man who had lost everything deserved to see justice done. Jake wore a simple civilian suit, but every person on the ship treated him with the respect usually reserved for high-ranking officers. His story had spread through the fleet, and everyone knew why they were fighting. Mr. Morrison, Admiral Collins said, we're about to enter the Zaltharian home system. Would you like to send them a message before we begin? Jake looked out at the massive fleet surrounding them. 200 human ships stretched as far as he could see. Every one of them carried the image of a golden retriever alongside the human flag. It was a sight that would have made Max's tail wag with excitement. Patch me through to their command. Ship, Jake said. The communication channel opened, and Jake found himself looking at a Zaltharian commander. The alien's black eyes showed no emotion as it spoke through the translation system. Human vessel, You are in violation of Zaltharian space. State your business, or be destroyed. Jake took a deep breath before answering. 3 weeks ago, your forces attacked New Haven Colony. You killed innocent civilians. You killed an old farmer named Ben Murphy who never hurt anyone. And you killed my dog, Max. The Zaltharian commander looked confused. We do not understand. You have traveled across the galaxy to discuss dead animals. Max wasn't just an animal. He was family. It was loyal and brave and good. He died trying to protect someone he barely knew, because that's what good dogs do. You killed him like he was nothing. It was only a creature. We offer compensation for damaged property. Jake felt the same cold anger that had carried him through the past 3 weeks. You still don't understand. Max wasn't property. He was a friend, family member, someone we loved, and you murdered him. The Zaltharian shrugged, a gesture that looked strange on the alien's thin frame. Then you are fools to care so much about lesser beings. Jake smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You're about to learn exactly how much we care, he nodded. To Admiral Collins, who gave the order that would echo through history. All ships, this is Admiral Collins. You are authorized to engage. Remember Max. The human fleet opened fire as one. Thousands of weapons lit up the darkness of space, all focused on the Zaltharian ships ahead. The aliens had expected negotiations, or maybe a limited engagement. Instead, they faced the full fury of a species that had been pushed too far. The battle for the Zaltharian home system had begun, and humanity was not interested in showing mercy to people who killed dogs. The battle for the Zaltharian home system lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the alien fleet was nothing but burning wreckage floating in space. Not a single Zaltharian ship escaped. The humans had fought with a fury that surprised even themselves. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as the last enemy vessel exploded in a ball of fire. Around him, the crew cheered and hugged each other. They had won a complete victory with minimal losses. But Jake felt empty inside. Max was still gone, and no amount of revenge could bring him back. Admiral Collins walked over to where Jake stood. By the viewing window. It's over, Mr. Morrison. They paid for what they did. Is it really over? Jake asked. Or is this just the beginning? The Admiral understood what Jake meant. The destruction of the Zaltharian fleet was only the first step. Now humanity had to decide what to do with an entire alien civilization that had shown such cruelty toward innocent creatures. 3 months later, Jake found himself in a place he never expected to be. The newly built Galactic Council building. On the neutral world of Harmony Station, hosted representatives from over 50 different species. Jake wore the formal uniform of Earth's newly created Department of Animal Welfare, a government agency that had been formed after the war. President Carter had offered Jake the position of human ambassador for animal rights. At first, he had refused. He was a farmer, not a diplomat. But then he realized that Max's death could save other innocent creatures across the galaxy. If handled correctly, the council chamber was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. There were the tall, elegant Viridians with their green skin and multiple arms. The small, furry Keplari, who looked almost like earth squirrels. The massive Therian delegates who had to use special chairs to support their weight. All of them were here to discuss the new laws that humanity had proposed. Jake stood at the speaking platform, looking out at hundreds of alien faces. Some looked curious. Others seemed bored. A few appeared hostile.
Ow.
None of them really understood why humans cared so much about animals. My name is Jake Morrison, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation system. 3 months ago, I was a simple farmer on a quiet world called New Haven. I lived there with my dog Max, who was my best friend and the only family I had left. He paused, looking around the room. Some of the aliens were paying closer attention. Now, stories about individuals were easier to follow than political speeches. When the Zaltharians attacked my world, they killed many people. They destroyed homes and farms. But the thing that made humanity declare total war was not the human deaths or the property damage. It was the murder of one loyal dog who died trying to protect a neighbor. A delegate from the Centauri Federation raised a tentacle to speak. Ambassador Morrison, with respect, your species went to war over an animal. Many of us find this difficult to understand. In most civilizations, animals are considered property or food sources. Jake had expected this question. He had spent weeks preparing for it. That's exactly the problem. You see animals as things to be owned or consumed. We see them as individuals with their own personalities, feelings, and rights. He activated the holographic display behind him. Images of Earth animals appeared in the air above the assembly. Dogs playing with children, cats sleeping in sunny windows, horses running free in open fields. These are not just animals to us. They are companions, helpers, friends, and family members. They love us without asking for anything in return except food and shelter. They protect our children, help us work, and comfort us when we are sad or afraid. A Zaltharian delegate, one of the few survivors of their broken civilization, stood up slowly. The alien's voice was quiet and ashamed when he spoke. We did not know. In our culture, we have never formed such bonds with other species. We thought you were being weak and foolish. You learned differently, Jake replied without anger.
Ow.
Your entire military was destroyed because you killed one dog. Does that seem weak to you now? The Zaltharian sat back down without answering. Everyone in the chamber had seen the battle reports. The speed and completeness of humanity's victory had shocked the entire galaxy. Jake continued his presentation, showing videos of service animals helping disabled humans, therapy dogs visiting hospitals, of search and rescue animals finding lost people. With each image, the alien delegate seemed to understand a little more about the bond between humans and their animal companions. We are not asking you to change your entire cultures overnight, Jake said as the presentation ended. We are simply asking you to recognize that some species form deep emotional bonds with animals, and that harming those animals is the same as harming family members. The Viridian Prime Minister spoke next.
What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador?
Morrison. Jake took a deep breath. This was the most important part of his speech. We propose the Universal Animal Protection Accords. Any species that deliberately harms companion animals, therapy animals, or service animals belonging to another species will face immediate economic sanctions and potential military action. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates seemed outraged at the idea that animal welfare could affect interstellar politics. Others appeared thoughtful, considering the implications. The debate lasted for 3 days. Some species argued that the proposed laws interfered with their sovereignty. Others worried about the economic impact of trade sanctions. But everyone remembered what had happened to the Zelthrons. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Every species in the council agreed to the Animal Protection Accords. They had all seen what humans would do to protect their pets, and none of them wanted to face that fury. Jake returned to New Haven after the vote. The colony had been rebuilt, bigger and better than before. His farm was exactly as it had been, except for one new addition. In the center of his property stood a bronze statue of a golden retriever, running with his ears flying and his tongue hanging out in pure joy. Children from the colony came to visit the statue every day. They brought flowers and small toys, leaving them at the base of the monument. Many of them had their own pets now, dogs and cats brought from Earth to help the families heal from the trauma of the attack. Jake sat on his porch in the evening, watching the sunset just as he had before the war, but now he was not alone. A young German shepherd named Hope lay beside him, her head resting on his lap. She was nothing like Max in personality, but she was loyal and kind and brave in her own way. The galaxy was different now, safer for all the innocent creatures who depended on the protection of thinking beings. It had taken a war and the destruction of an entire military to teach the universe a simple lesson. Humans loved their pets more than aliens could imagine. And that love was a force that could reshape civilizations. Jake scratched Hope behind the ears and smiled as her tail thumped against the deck. Max was gone, but his legacy lived on in every animal that would never again be harmed by those who did not understand the bonds of friendship and loyalty. The stars above were peaceful now, protected by laws written in memory of one good dog. who died doing what good dogs do best, protecting the people he loved.